Sure, why not?
All right. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Areopagus. Shane is back with us after a brush with death, we'll say.
It's close.
I mean, you did have a ruptured appendix, so I mean,
very ruptured.
Could have went south,
Yeah.
really quick. So,
I don't recommend it. It's not fun.
No,
I can imagine, dude.
and so we got
glad
him.
you're back.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes, we are. That was a lot of prayer. That was a lot of concern about and about all that. I kept in contact with a Jew quite a bit just to make him.
Oh,
sure
Lord, I didn't even have my phone for 3 days. First time
man.
I picked up, I'm like, nope. Sorry, guys. I'll tell you in person. I'm not answering all these. I mean, there were numbers on everything. I was like, flip it over. We can't do that.
Which is why I knew when I sent a text to Julie, I would get a response whenever she got around to it.
Yeah. She'd usually wait till that evening when I finally crashed out. She'd sit over on the couch answering everything.
But we're glad you're back.
Yep.
I'm sure that first ride for Chloe's last game from Tomball back to here was not fun.
No, seatbelt hit right where they put a hole in me. So
Oops.
I just took my sweatshirt, folded it up like a pad, then put the seatbelt over it.
Well, we are glad you're back.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
we have a new face with us today. We'll see if he comes back or not. It's Ronnie. Typically, the first recording determines if you come back or not. So far, everyone has returned at some point, so it works. But guys, if y'all like them in this, well, y'all won't see this till the first Sunday of January, so we got a couple weeks before this goes live. But I hope y'all had a good Christmas. I hope that y'all remembered the reason why we do celebrate Christmas. But we are starting our series for the Sermon on the Mount. And like the past few series, or actually all the series we've done, we're going to start with an intro to it, just kind of talk over different parts and highlights, and we'll dive from it in and as we go. The good news about this sermon about this series compared to the last series is we will not spend 5 episodes on one section. I can guarantee that.
Famous last words.
So, Ronnie, I don't know if you've even watched some of these, but we were like, we were recording episode 4 of our Genesis study. So technically it's episode 5 because of the intro. Shane missed the first 3 because he had other things going on. And we sit down and we start recording, and he's like, hey, where are we on this this is, and because I've missed the past 3 weeks, so I'm just kind of curious where we're at. I forgot to ask, and we all start laughing, and I said, we're still in chapter 1.
Man. Yeah, we ain't got out of chapter 1 yet.
And it was that episode and one more before we wrapped it up.
Before we just
some things take that deep dive.
Well, I don't think we ever really got that deep into it until the last episode. It was just our different thoughts and beliefs around the whole thing.
Right.
And so it was... I don't see that happening this time, and because we're not going chapter by chapter, we're doing topic by topic. And so I think it was last week I sat down and I read through it, and I looked at the different labels above each section of scripture. And I kind of came up with a game plan that breaks these 3 chapters down into into 10 episodes, excluding this one. So I
There's
sent
9
it out to
blessings,
y'all.
So
Huh?
I said, well, there's 9 blessings, so there's 9 episodes.
Well,
The way we do it.
Shane, I do.
I'm just saying.
So the goal is
Mhm.
not to spend an episode on every individual topic.
Okay.
That is the goal.
All right.
But I did go through. I broke it down into into 10 different groups that seem to go hand in hand with each other. So we're going to just follow that. If one ends up making 2 episodes, then so be it. But that is not the goal here. I did do some research, and what I could find, this is Jesus's first large group teaching. The rest of them prior to has been, a few here and a few there. It's been the disciples plus some other followers. It's never been a massive group setting. Now, throwing a deal to Shane, because he's the one who got me hooked on it. When you watch this part of The Chosen,
Mm-hmm.
They're spreading the word. You have the disciples going from town to town, talking to different people, saying that he's going to do a large teaching on this day at this time at this place.
Almost handing out flyers like an event.
Right. Yeah. And like an event leading up to the fact. And so, which is in the series, which is when we're introduced to
Judas.
Mhm. And so, which, of course, when I'm watching that and I realize who this guy is, once it mentions his name, I was like, you.
You're the bad guy.
You are what happens. Anyway, but I do like him the way that it's portrayed in the show, because it makes it a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it really is. It's a sermon that takes 3 chapters to get through. And so, I mean, we start with the Beatitudes, which, talking to John last week, when he told me he wasn't going to be here, well, I thought he just wasn't going to be here for the podcast, and he said, no, I won't be here at all on Sunday. So, of course, I had to make him feel bad because he was skipping the whole day, not just the podcast. He skipped Sunday school and service and everything. So, I had to make him in that jab. But I didn't realize that the Beatitudes were in Luke as well.
That is correct.
And is what he told him and me. And because he asked me, are we working out of Luke or out of Matthew? And I was like, the Sermon on the Mount's in Luke too?
Yes.
And he said, well, the Beatitudes are.
Right.
And I was like,
total.
I was like, the whole Sermon on the Mount's in Luke as well? And he said, no, it's just the Beatitudes.
Just the Beatitudes. Yeah.
So,
But they're also not in Mark or John.
John, yeah.
Right. So Matthew is the only place that we get, what would be considered the entire Sermon on the Mount,
Right.
Beatitudes and everything else that he talked about.
Well, looking at that, it kind of makes me think, and because we know that Dallas Jenkins does take some liberal art with the show,
Sure.
because we don't get I mean, we just don't get the whole story, and there's bits and pieces missing. But when you watch the chosen, Matthew is not necessarily helping Jesus prepare for the sermon.
He's
on
more
the
like
Mount,
his scribe, his personal
but he's
scribe.
scribing it.
Right.
And so, which makes sense why we do get the complete thing in Matthew.
Well, we have somebody that would have been there as an eyewitness, right?
Right.
Of the Gospels, right? Matthew and John both were disciples of Jesus. Were there as he was going around doing his stuff.
Right.
The other two, Luke and Mark, were disciples of the disciples.
Right.
Right. So
Mark was of Peter, and Luke was a physician that talked to several of them, I think.
well,
Well,
he
he
was
was
there
Paul.
in Jerusalem, but he primarily hung out with Paul.
Right.
Right.
And because I've heard it stated that the first half of Acts could technically be second Luke. And because Luke writes the majority of
Sure.
the first of Acts is what I-
Acts could have been called something other than Acts.
Yeah.
Right. Because it was really a continuation of his gospel.
Mhm.
So it was the history of Christ until Peter and Paul essentially were martyred.
right.
So, but I think it's always. I mean, if we're looking at church history and we're looking at the Bible and things like that, generally it's theorized that Matthew, Luke were borrowing or had John or had Mark as a gospel to go off of. Well, Mark didn't have any of the Sermon on the Mount in it, so I've always found that challenging when you go, well, why would if Matthew was essentially copying Mark, why would Mark not have this and then,
Right.
and why would Matthew add it? So, yeah, I'm not sure that I totally agree with those theories. Just in the fact that it seems like there's a different narrative that's going on. I mean, yeah, there's similar stories. It's kind of paced the same way. If you look at Mark and Matthew, they're kind of paced the same way.
Well,
but there are things that
that
Matthew has that Mark doesn't.
Right.
Right.
I've heard it said that Mark is the Cliff Notes of Matthew, which you would think that until there's you said there's none of the Sermon on the Mount in there, and the Sermon on the Mount is a really big deal.
Well,
And because it really gets Jesus in front of the masses at one time, not just from town to town.
Well, the question that I ask is why would Matthew, who was writing to a primarily Jewish audience, okay, because we know Matthew primarily was focused on the Jewishness of Jesus, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there again, I'm using these, but so what makes this particular story stand out in Matthew's eyes as something that would be Jewish about Jesus, right? Why would, and then I think about, Jesus being a rabbi, right? So he's a teacher here,
Right.
right? He's teaching people, right? So it would be like a rabbi, you go to a rabbi at a temple, well, people were coming to Jesus and his temple happened to be, a big rock, that was protruding out of the ground. It wasn't a building or a whatever. So they were coming to listen to the rabbi talk, right? So I think there again, Matthew had some intention of putting this in there. There was a reason why Matthew felt that this needed to be part of the story that he told about Jesus.
And takes up a chunk of it. I mean, 3 chapters. Is,
3 chapters is pretty substantial amount of information. You're correct, and I don't know that in any other of the Gospels that we have that kind of dedication to one particular event.
I don't believe there is. I
Right.
mean, from a what now, of course, the labels and the chapters and the verses were all done
After,
after.
right,
For them, it would have been one long scroll or one long papyrus or letter or whichever way it was written.
right.
The chapters and the verses and the headings and all that was put in there for our convenience.
Or for scholars to discuss things, right? Or people to
specifically.
be able, right? So we can discuss this. Well, what are you talking about? Well, if you go over here to Matthew, and look for this word,
Yeah,
well, that's kind of hard to find, right?
that's going to be a minute. I got to read it.
Right, exactly. So, we do things like that to make it more convenient to discuss and talk about and reference, right? So, yeah, you're right. But yeah, there's a significant amount of the Gospel of Matthew that's dedicated just to this particular story. You're right. And there again, to me, there's the oddities of the Bible that there's a thread there that I just seem to have to want to pull. Why? Why is that?
Well, I looked at this and I've read it so far, just coming in my ESV. Before we start, I'm actually going. My goal is before each one, read each section in 3 translations: my ESV, my 95 NASB, and then my CSB. They're all 3 study Bibles, so I'm getting 3 completely different sets of commentary about each section, which I enjoy because I'm getting a lot of perspective on the same thing.
Sure.
But there's a lot of things covered. I mean, we have the Beatitudes, which is the first thing we'll really dive into, and I will say that I think I'm the one I enjoy the most and relate to is 5 verse 9 is blessed are the peacekeepers because they will be called sons of God. Coming from my background, and Ronnie shares the same background, being in that mindset, even though there was a lot of bad and a lot of trauma and a lot of not well intentions in those situations, from that verse, I know that I was doing the right thing. At the end of the day, I was doing the right thing. And so I really draw from that, and I do enjoy it. But we get salt and light, which I'm going to have to dig into because we only get verse 13 is the only one that talks about salt, and then we spend the next 3 verses on the light. So I understand the purpose of salt, but I myself will have to do some digging in that because it makes sense but doesn't make sense, and it's like the first 11 chapters of Genesis is very vague,
right,
on some things, and so I'm looking
Especially
forward
chapter
to
1.
that, and chapter 6, the first 4 verses of chapter 6. But I'm looking forward to that because I've never dove into that. And so for me, I'm excited. We get how, he came to fulfill the law, not to abolish.
Right.
And then one of our days will be spent on, I was talking with, I think it was John. We got on the topic of divorce because it's on my board, and I haven't touched that because I don't come from a divorced home. I've never been divorced. So I don't understand what goes on in that process. Heather knows, but I don't. And so it's something I've wanted to discuss, but I've never known how to approach it. Well, when I got to thinking about, our next series, I was like, the Sermon on the Mount, I got to look at it. I'm like, well, divorce is covered. So at least, we'll get scriptural context of divorce. So that's good. Well, then I got to looking, well, how are we going to divide the Sermon on the Mount up? Well, what little I know about divorce, well, if you go to the prior 2 sections to divorce, you have anger and lust. And from what I know about divorce, anger and lust are typically involved. So we're going to slam all 3 of those into one episode and just let it roll.
Not only anger and lust, but deceit and the breach of trust of a binding marriage that we're taught that we should have, right? I speak on that because unfortunately I do come from a split home. My mom and dad got divorced when I was very young. I was 2 or 3 years old when it happened. Being that young, I didn't figure things out until I was almost in the 5th grade, and it kind of clicked with me, hey, why am I always having to go to dad's house? And so when it comes time for that, I would love to be in again because I have a child's aspect of that. I've been very blessed that I've only had one wife, and I'm planning to keep her for the rest of my days. But I have the child aspect, the innocent aspect of the divorce side of things.
Okay. Yeah. We'll keep that in mind when we get there. That'll be that'll be episode 3 of this. So I like that. And thank you, Ronnie, because like I said, I know nothing about it except 90% of the time, nothing good comes from it. Now I've seen people get divorced that don't have kids, this, that, and the other, and the only people really affected is them, and it's living different places at that point. But when kids are involved, I know it can get dirty and nasty and mean, and so, but beyond that, I know nothing about divorce. So, one thing I am looking forward to is, where did it go? Discussing the Lord's Prayer. I did notice that this is not the full Lord's Prayer in the Sermon on the Mount. I was reading through it this morning, and I'm hoping you can tell me where the full version is.
I'm not sure that I can tell you exactly.
Because it's not Matthew.
Yeah. But
I do like how he takes the time to instruct the people on, this is how you pray.
Right.
If you have nothing else,
just do this.
Just do this. And so, I mean, it's as simple. I mean, it's as simple as it comes. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Your will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Well, that's where the Matthew one stops. And I know there's another section after that, but it's not in the Sermon on the Mount. So when we get to that part, we'll finish it out. But we also discuss fasting. The only thing I know about fasting is before a medical procedure. I've never delve into fasting from a biblical standpoint. I actually, the only person I've ever spoke to that has talked about fasting is my barber, and he goes into a deep state of fast and prayer before every large decision he makes, which, from what I've read, is what you're supposed to do.
Right.
And so, but I know nothing about fasting, so I'm looking
Okay,
forward to that part too.
Okay, so the Lord's Prayer appears in Matthew 6, 9 through 13, and it also is in Luke 11, 2 through 4. So it's Luke 11,
It's Luke 11.
2 through 4 is the parallel.
All right. And I have a book that Tim told me to buy that I'll start to use during this as well. It's got all 4 Gospels in it, and
It's called the Synoptic Gospels. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, okay, I'm sorry. There's a book that I have that actually has
and the common verses or
Right.
scripture. Yeah.
right. So it just in one column is Matthew, Luke, Mark, John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got that, and so I'll have it out to where when we're going through each section, I'll have it marked, and if it's anywhere else, and we can discuss the differences in the way it's presented in the different gospels. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Probably the one I'm looking forward to the most is chapter 7, 1 through 6.
Chapter 7, 1 through 6.
Yes, because
I don't have all of them memorized.
so this is the judge. You do not
okay.
judge.
Okay.
And so before I began to get into scripture myself, I've always been told and heard that I'm not supposed to judge. Only God can judge me. This, that, and the other. As a Christian, I can't do that. Well, throughout Scripture, as Christians, we are told to call out and judge our brothers.
Well, there again, that's where I think sometimes we get
Now, there's an appropriate way to do it.
right there again. I think we try to absolute some things and we talk in absolutes like that we shouldn't. Right? We shouldn't. I guess the word that I'm trying to look for is we ought to be more charitable to one another. There again, I'm gonna say it. I'm sorry, I'm gonna say it. There's Tootsie Roll Center of the Tootsie Pop issues.
Yeah.
Right. Everything else is candy around the center of the wrapper. The bag that it came in, the box that they throw it in.
Right.
From the truck. Okay, so is this the Tootsie Roll Center of the Tootsie Pop? And if it isn't, let's back off. So yeah, but also I think it's that people read things and they don't take things in context, right?
Or they stop.
Right. So all that I'm going to do is read that. Right.
Because anytime it's been approached to me, don't judge this, that, and the other, they say, and they look it up and go, well, in Matthew chapter 7, verse 1, it says, judge not that you not be judged, and they stop. Well, there's 5 other verses there that tell you specifically how.
Well, we are going to be judged.
Right.
All of us. Everybody in this room is going to be judged.
Right.
Now we got to go over. We got to go over a little bit in the book,
Yeah.
right? We got to get out of Matthew.
I'm
and we
hoping
gotta
it's
go
not a
over there.
highlight reel.
Right.
I'm hoping it's not a
Well,
highlight reel.
I've done told everybody who's behind me, you just might as well sit down and get out your sack lunch because we're gonna be there a moment. Yeah, we're gonna be there a good minute. So yeah. But there again, okay. So we are going to be judged.
Mm-hmm.
So the sentence, "Don't judge, lest you be judged." Well, the Bible tells me that I'm already judged.
Mm-hmm.
I've already been judged and found guilty.
And what it's saying too, you know, when I read that, and what I read is not so much saying do not judge, but it's saying don't judge someone of your like being with your like mistakes without first reflecting upon them yourself.
Right.
Well, and there again, that's sound wisdom and sound advice, right?
Yeah.
But there again, I think people get hung up and they want to waggle fingers at people, you know, so they feel superior and all of that stuff. And well, I don't want to serve on jury duty, right?
Well, and that's why.
So I'm gonna pull that out of my pocket so I don't have to sit in the jury box for a few hours.
You know,
Right.
I can talk. A, I've never been picked for jury duty. B, they typically get canceled before I even have to go. C, I am now the caregiver of a small child and have autistic children, so
Right.
I can check one of those boxes of why I can't go. But I've always thought, you know, what if I were picked? You know, would I be able to put aside all my personal and stay biased?
Unbiased.
Or unbiased,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
that one.
I've been on two, and both of them I had no problem throwing a book at the guys.
See,
No problem at all.
I was gonna say I've been on two, but I got lucky. The first one, you know, they were selecting. The first one they selected us. I was one of the ones they selected. I was like, okay, here we go. You know, a week of going to the courthouse downtown every day. I was on my way to the courthouse the first day, and the attorney called me and goes, "Hey, if you've left, you can turn around and go home." I was like, "All right, cool." Second day, they had just enough 2 people before me where I didn't get selected. So, but I understand what you're saying. Like, I don't know if I would be able to do that. I always say that I would be able to.
I've never
truthfully,
said
set in
I
that
could.
setting, I don't know.
Could be, you know, because I have my foundations and beliefs, and I have my hard no-go lines.
Yes.
And if something was on the other side of that line, I honestly don't think I could be unbiased and be fair.
Right.
Because to me, if it's past that no-go line, there's no acceptable excuse or reason for it. Period.
Correct.
I don't care what you have to say.
Well, there was one instance where I had to talk to the judge and told him that I wouldn't be the juror in that particular situation because I disagreed. There was another time where I was picked for jury duty and it was a civil case, and I actually knew both of the people.
Oh, man.
I need to be excused from this.
So it was like I knew both of them, and both of them were idiots, and I probably would have voted that neither one of them should have gotten anything, and that's what I essentially told the judge, and both of the lawyers just fell out laughing.
But being a paramedic,
You're awful quiet over
my
there,
line of
Shane.
work, I've
You're
also
awful
been
quiet.
on the
I
other.
have been to jury.
Yeah.
I've been on the other side of that. I haven't been the one on trial, but I've been one of the ones that had to testify.
Right.
And we're talking about do not judge and the pressures and everything like that. I can tell you, sitting in that little wooden box, with that
Everybody's
speaker right in
judging
front of
you.
your face, and there's 100 people in that courtroom, those eyes and that air gets
Yeah.
very heavy and thick.
Everyone is judging
Yes.
you.
Yeah. So
But,
that's
it's-
going to be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think it will be just because of what it is, and and the parable he gives in there, it really does it makes sense when you actually sit down and you think about it. And because, like you said, if you have a problem with alcohol and you're doing this, that, and the other, well, I have a problem with alcohol. I'm not going to come. I can't come to you as a brother in Christ, going, "You need to quit and go over here and empty a keg." I mean,
Right.
I can't do that. Now, if I've assessed myself, taken steps, repented, and going, "Okay, I haven't had a drink in 3 months. You and I need to talk."
Right.
That's a different story.
Sure.
Yes.
But the speck and the plank, we get into that and being called hypocrites and all that. So I think that one will be a really good discussion. I really do.
Yes.
So let's see. Another one that'll be interesting that I think we've talked about on a previous podcast actually is 7:21 through 23. As in my terms, I perceive as the most terrifying 3 verses in Scripture.
It's a horrible. Yep.
To do everything and depart from me, for I never knew you. That's terrifying.
That's about the roughest scripture that there is, as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, in the scripture I've read,
Where are you at?
chapter 7,
Oh,
21
7.
through
I,
23.
seven. I
yeah.
thought you were 521.
No.
Still. Okay.
No, 7.
I was like, that ain't it.
No, 7.
yeah.
And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness. That's terrifying.
Well, and there again, I mean, to go back to the first of it, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven,
Mm-hmm.
but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. On that day, many will say to me, Lord, Lord.
Mm. Yeah, that's
I prophesied, I did everything, and depart from me. Yeah, you bet. That's for Christians or for people who
claim
think
to
they're
be Christians. Yeah,
That's
But
that's
not,
pretty scary.
I used to
but not for the ones that did that, and then kind of like you said with the do not judge thing. Not the ones that said that said, we not prophesize in your name and everything like that, but then turn around after that and lead back into a life of lawlessness or deceitfulness from the people that they were just helping.
Yeah. That verse used to scare me and confuse me, and I don't know when, but it finally dawned on me what he's talking about, and it's not me, and it's not you.
Right.
It's people that claim to be Christian that use that moniker to make money, to change their status in life, whether it be power, whatever.
Joe Olstein.
Well, I wasn't going to say any names, but yes, spot on. I mean, I think that's exactly who he's talking about, because he points out that they say, well, didn't I prophesy in your name? Well, I don't go around telling people I can prophesy in your name, and I haven't thrown out any demons lately because I don't think I can, but so I'm not worried about that verse anymore. I understand, okay, it's he's warning those people that are out there going, oh, I'm a good Christian,
Right.
but I hate, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay.
The false prophets.
Exactly.
You say the demons, and it's Peter, and someone was like, we tried. And Jesus goes, ye of little faith.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, was that a sarcastic comment or an underbreath scolding comment?
Yeah, sometimes, and we've talked about that before. Sometimes I'm not sure, if he's trying to be patient or mad. So,
You know my opinion on it. He was getting kind of agitated, going, guys, I'm not up to here with this. I mean,
but
how else do I have to say
Clock's
it? I'm not going to be here very much longer.
Clock's
Y'all have to
ticking.
get a clue
But
sometime.
him doing that to them, how many of our fathers, now that a lot of us are fathers, have done that to us?
No, yeah.
Where they've kind of given that little
Yeah,
to us, and we're like, oh.
exactly.
You know, I mean, I'm raising 3 boys, and my third one is just here lately. My word for him has become lunatic, and because that is the only word that comes to mind. And
do I need to buy you a thesaurus so you can actually look up maybe some other words?
no, because lunatic's pretty fit. Right.
I could think of some words that are synonymous with it. That you could use if you wanted to.
Then I think about my 14-year-old in the same aspect. It's that, okay, I've told you this, I don't know how many times. How many times and is it going to hurt? Which one of those are you going to go, ow, and the light bulb's going to come on? I mean,
it goes.
are girls that way?
Yes.
Yes.
And Chloe was like that.
I mean, on some things, yes. I mean, they know everything.
Right.
You're an idiot,
Right.
and you're going to be an idiot until they get to
About 25.
25, mid-20s. And then you're going to be back to, oh, wait a minute, I need to go ask Dad about this. But until then, you're an idiot. You don't know
the
anything.
biggest trap there is. I'm just saying.
I live by the philosophy with my youngest, which you've met my youngest. You know how rambunctious she can be. I finally sat back and I'm like, I'm not going to intervene anymore. I'm going to let her and Jesus figure this out. Because she's going to have the owls. She's going to have the aha moments. And the quicker she does it, the easier it's going to make it on me to be like, see?
See, I couldn't imagine having to father a daughter. I mean, you've had daughters, you have a daughter, you have 2 daughters. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm patient or nice enough to have daughters.
I can say this. I thought I had patience with my boy. And I thought I had love for my child with my boy. But a love for a daughter and a love for a son are 2 totally different depths into the soul.
Well, I've said this before. I have a really good friend who has 2 daughters, and out of his 2 actual brothers, his daughters get more and more excited when Uncle Jeremy calls or Uncle Jeremy comes over than their actual blood uncles. But I'm sitting there watching these girls, and nothing makes sense. They're like sitting and doing, and I turn and there's World War III behind me with my boys, and I'm like, what is this? And they're telling me about their days, and they're so happy and talkative, and I'm like, I don't know how to act.
Well, there are daughters that will climb trees and fall and scrape themselves and act wilder than the wildest heathen I've ever seen in my life. And some of them share my last name. Yeah.
I thought I had it scot-free. I mean, I had an 8-year-old, 9-year-old that all she wanted to do was, Dad, when can we go shoot guns? When can we do this? She's out in the backyard shooting her bow and arrow, compound bow in the backyard at 8, 9 years old. It's like, this is easy. I don't know what you're talking about. And then the teenagers come.
Yeah, and then
And then there's emotional stuff that you're like, but that doesn't make sense. And you're just like,
you don't
woman,
understand.
come tag in, I'm out.
I don't even want to know how much worse this is going to get, because my middle one, my oldest daughter, is 11, and we've already gotten to that. I asked her to hurry up this morning to kind of start getting ready to get to church, because my sister-in-law was in town and made sweets. You know, we brought it to Fudge Church and everything.
Oh yeah, you missed fudge and Sunday
No, they brought it to me.
Okay.
And
They brought it to me.
I was like, hey, you know, get up. We got to get up a little early. Da, da, da. And you would have thought World War III broke out and it was the end of times because she sat down in the middle of the living room floor and just started bawling. And I was like, I'm going to go take a shower.
I don't even know what to do with this. Yeah, no, it gets worse because their friends are going to say something, and then the other friends we were supposed to be friends with. You know, these were the enemies. These friends, and then this day they're switched, and they're asking you to explain it to them, and you're like,
I do
just
know,
punch them in the mouth. I don't know what to tell you other than that. I mean, that's what we did.
That's what we did.
I do know that there is a 3-girl rule,
Yes.
and it's a very bad thing.
Yeah.
Because 2 of them will always get along, and that third one will always be left out, and it flips and flops and switches and changes by the minute.
Absolutely.
So I do know about the 3-girl rule.
Yeah,
then-
I had 3 of them in my house at one time.
And then my youngest, who will be 8
Yeah.
next month,
And there was
8 years
12
old.
years
She is in
between
second
The
grade.
big one and the little
and
one.
she's already got 2 boys that are jealous over her. One is our neighbor, and one is a friend, a so-called friend of hers, at school. But they've already went to DQ with the moms to go eat with each other, and I'm like, nope. And I told my wife the other day, I was like, I tell you what, if it gets that bad, I said, me and the son are going to take a road trip, a hunting trip. We're going to go fishing. We'll let y'all figure it out.
I thought, I thought I was going to have to do all the, the meme stuff, and
And the
when he
scary
came
dad
over, be
stuff.
over cleaning the guns, or telling him about my stint in prison, or this, that, and she just wasn't interested. I mean, her first boyfriend, she pretty much graduated high school, or was right headed towards graduation, and they're still together now, and it's like, okay, well, I'm not going. I don't know what I did, but thank you, Lord.
Right.
I will say
I've been
probably.
to prison and I ain't afraid of going back.
Yeah, exactly.
I
like the ones, whatever you do to her tonight, I'm going to do to you when you get
That's
back.
it. You seen the video? There's actually a video. I saw it on TikTok. I'm trying to stay off of it as much as I can, but sometimes I get
That's my
scrolling at
entertainment
night,
value.
And there's one, and it's a video of an actual dad sitting there holding
Yes.
the boyfriend's hand while he's watching TV, just like,
Yeah.
and that teenager's just like,
I will say.
Is it worth it?
I
Let
will
me take
say
another look at her.
probably the most, to talk about here, the most inappropriate scene I've seen is in Bad Boys 2 with Will Smith and Martin Lawrence when the kid knocks on the door.
Mhm.
That is probably the most inappropriate, but the most hilarious scene I think I've ever seen when it
and I
comes to a
ain't going
daughter's
back.
person.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm looking forward to this series and because Christ gives an amazing amount of good advice. We talk about anxiety in here, which is phenomenal. Build up your treasures in heaven and not on earth. I mean, I've never seen a hearse with the U-Haul trailer, so I mean, it stays here, and you leave the world the same way you came in, cold and naked. So, fasting, the Lord's Prayer, anger, lust, how to deal with these things, oaths.
Jeremy, just jump back in. I saw the clock winding down.
Sure.
We'll loop back to something y'all were talking about the different authors, and I can't remember where I read it at, and I think Dallas must have read the same thing because I think he's got it set up to where if you watch The Chosen, Matthew is this semi-autistic, person, very
he's definitely
OCD,
autistic
and
in the show. I mean, now whether he was or not in real life,
no, but you
in the
figure
show, he's definitely autistic.
if he was an accountant, a tax collector for the Romans, being a Jew, you figure
And
he was
Yeah.
at the top of his game. I
Yeah.
mean, he was good. So there was probably something very quirky about him. And
It's
you
like
got
the
Luke
movie,
the doctor.
accountant.
Yeah. Yeah, and you got Luke that's the doctor.
Mhm.
Now then you've got Mark, and John, and from John's writings, you can tell he's the passionate one. He's the one in his emotions all the time. He's
He
very
was
close
the
to
favored
Jesus,
one.
according to him.
Yeah.
He was-
According to him, he's the favored one.
I mean, Jesus did name to give Peter a new name, and on this rock my church will be built. But sure, John was the favorite. Okay, but you take it from that aspect of well, Matthew's the chronological, detail-oriented historian. So his is going to be very dry and to the point and cover everything. And I think that's why you got more of the Beatitudes in there, is because that was him. And then you've got Mark, who's basically writing secondhand for every story that Peter ever told him. And that there's some stuff in there with Peter being the head of Jesus' church. Probably don't have a lot of time just sit around and tell stories, so Mark got what he got, and that's why some of his is truncated. In Luke's, if we read it knowing that he was a physician, it does come across
literal,
as a
or
very
it's
educated literature
Sure.
type writing.
Right.
And then like I say, John's is very passionate, emotional. So I think it's cool when you figure that out, that's why there was 5 different books, and that's why, even though most of them tell the same story just from a different perspective, I think that's why it's important that they did put them all together and put them in there, is because you get that aspect view from 4 different people.
And one of the biggest things I've heard to discredit the Bible is the Gospels themselves, because they don't always match up specifically. But what is his name? J. something Warren. He was a detective.
Yeah, cold
It's
case.
cold
Chris.
case.
Cole.
detective.
Yeah, Cole. Case, and he explains it so well. He says,
The case for Christ.
when I would dig into a case file of a murder, or and just happen to be on a car wreck or something like that, and I talked to 5 different people. Well, if I talk to 5 people and get the exact same story, I'm going to be concerned.
Knew there was collusion.
But when I talk to 4 or 5 people, well,
And they got the nuts of the story right.
Right, but there's
his
detail.
shirt was green. No, it was blue, but the car came from this
Inconsequential
way.
stuff, right.
Or
Right.
we last saw him here. He said, the minor details are what separates it, but the heart of the story is the same. In the 4 Gospels, exactly. And it only takes 3 licks.
to
So,
get to the center.
when you dive into the Gospels, no matter if it was wrote by a very analytical person and because of a mental handicap, or a person that was running around writing things as fast as he could hear them, or a physician who takes just a different approach because of the way his mind works, or someone that is just full of emotion,
Well,
because of his connection, the heart of the story is the same.
well, that's true, but there again, I also think that there's an element to it that Matthew, Mark, John, and Luke were not scribes. They weren't transcribers. They weren't running behind Jesus, writing down everything that he said, and every
Right.
time he sneezed, and then everybody said "achoo." Right. we think too much alone. But anyways, right? So they weren't just transcribing everything that they had. These were stories that were written after Jesus had left.
Right. After
Right.
his ascension. And
Right.
so
these were put together. Now, there again, it's not that these were put together 400, 500 years later.
a
right,
decade
these-
or more.
These
but,
were put
but
in, right. These
yeah.
were put in just right after Jesus left. Wait a minute. We need to write this stuff now. And there again, I believe somebody like Matthew, who would have been somebody that was used to pen and paper, right? Because he probably did a lot of accounting and wrote stuff down.
And I would say that the only part of that a tiny disagreement is I would be willing to bet that Matthew did take notes. He may have not wrote the book of Matthew, But I bet you he had some of the
He had
stories
some
written
highlights.
down and
I'm
notes
sure.
of,
I'm sure that
just because of who he was and what he did for a living.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't argue that. I wouldn't argue that point. And even with
Yeah.
John, I know. John. I guess I would question because I'm not sure how literate he would have been as a fisherman's son.
Yeah. In the
Galilee.
Chosen, they show him. He says, "Oh, I'm gonna. Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm gonna do it too."
Yeah.
I'm kind of like,
Yeah.
I don't know about that one, but
Right.
Matthew, yeah,
Right. Matthew
spot
was,
on.
Matthew was educated.
What would have disproved it more? The fact, like you said, that there's the minor differences, or would it disproved it more if everyone's story was exactly the same?
Yeah,
because if everyone's was exactly the same, the naysayers would have the easiest fight there is of saying it could all be replicated. at
y'all
any
got
time.
together.
and
Everything happened the same way every
Right.
time, so it was replicated. It was one event. It wasn't
Right.
multitudes of people that were helped.
And that's one of the
And
biggest
saved.
pluses when you hear somebody arguing it online, which those are the videos I like to watch online, is true theologians getting after it with somebody. And I mean, they don't even have to look in the Bible. They quote it out of their head, which is pretty cool. But, that's one of their
I don't
points
think I'll
is that the
agree with that.
first people that saw Jesus after his death were women.
women.
And they're like, who in their right minds, if these guys were going to make that up, there's no way in that time, the way that women were looked at, that they would have used women as their first eyewitnesses. No way.
Well, their testimony would have been useless in court.
Right, right,
So,
exactly.
so their testimony. I mean, if you were reading this as a first century Jew, you'd go, "Who cares that the women saw that
No.
first?"
And we have it easier.
Where the guys come in?
And we have
Yeah.
it easier nowadays too with technology and people making movies about the stories and stuff like that. And I really didn't realize how much easier we had it until on the 19th. Me and the wife, after they got out of school on Friday, we took the kids to the movie theater and took the kids to go see David. And it was when I was watching my 11-year-old watch the movie with her hands over her mouth and her eyes fixed on that screen and could see the light bulb.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's what it's about. Yes, technology can be the fall of us and the fall of our belief, but at the same time, if we use it for the right reasons and use it the right way, it is another tool to tell the stories.
Yeah, you pick anything. If there's a way for an evil person to turn it evil, they have.
Yes.
So I mean that's
Right. Well, there is one topic that I want to bring up.
Okay.
So,
Now that I closed my Bible.
well, it's something about the Sermon on the Mount that's out there.
Okay.
So is it a single event, or is this piecing together several different events? Stitched together.
Okay, so I'm gonna blame The Chosen for it because I've never delved into the Sermon on the Mount until I watched it.
Right.
I mean, I've read it, it's been discussed, bits and pieces here and there, but because of the way it's portrayed and perceived in the series The Chosen, I would like to believe that it was one large event that Christ stood up. Was there a stage they built for this? I don't
With
know.
spotlights and everything.
And
sound system.
and
32 channel mixer board.
and was there a curtain he came out? That's all elaborate
That's
and
TV.
doesn't
Fireworks.
mean squat.
Right.
But I would honestly like to believe that this was his official step out into the masses
I think it
to
was.
teach.
I think it was a singular event, at least for this one, and it happened just as the Bible said. He was trying to go somewhere else to preach to some group of people, and looks up and hears all these people that followed him, and he saw his opportunity and said, "Hey, look at the setting around me. If they're on the side of a mountain and he's got them at the base, and he can be up top. Hey, they can all hear me. They can all see me. perfect opportunity. Let's just do this. And I
Right.
think he did it.
Well, and I would also, I mean, on the other side of it, I don't know that I know, and I don't know that I really have an opinion about it. I just know that there's discussions that go on about it. But you know, I tend to sit on things, as y'all know, that you know I really don't think that it matters that much, even if it was something that was
Right.
sewn together, because I think that what we're doing is we're getting a glimpse into Jesus's mind, which I think is the important thing with this particular section of Matthew.
I mean, we get into we see the little synopsises of a mind,
Right.
of the mind that created everything.
Right. And there,
And
yeah.
and he takes the time in this first century culture to discuss anxiety,
Right.
fasting,
Right.
divorce. I mean,
Love and
teaches
hate.
people how to pray,
Right.
love your enemies,
Right.
Forgiveness.
forgiveness. I mean, he takes the time, and we get to see the Creator
Right.
give us little short glimpses of what his initial want for us was.
Right. And I think that that's the takeaway. Right. So whether or not this was a big production, you know, by Jesus Ministries Inc., you know, or anything like that, right? Even if this was a story that was kind of sewn together from 3 or 4 instances of Jesus doing something that would have been similar to this, that what we're getting is there again, we're getting the mind of the Creator. We're getting God. We're getting that Emmanuel that you know Eddie was talking about this morning. We're getting that God with us, you know, kind of downloading, you know, and in the vernacular nowadays, you know, downloading some stuff to us. So that's what I always thought was cool about the Sermon on the Mount. That
And it's just a glimpse. It's not.
Right.
It's not even a full piece of the puzzle.
Well, that's why. That's why sometimes when you know we talk about God's mind, that I feel like, you know, I hate to grab from Walt Whitman, but you know it's a barbaric yelp, you know, that I'm doing, you know. But here we have the mind of the Creator opened up to us,
Right.
and you know I think that we ought to pay attention to that.
Oh, for sure.
You know that's something fairly spectacular that we do. Now, there again, is this transcribed? Did Jesus say it actually word for word like it's written in the thing? There again, I don't know that I'm really concerned about
Well,
that.
yeah. I mean, you know, me and
Does somebody have
Heather.
a tape recorder? You know?
I mean, me and Heather were in town yesterday, and we were on my least favorite road in Tyler on the weekend before Christmas. But
Then you must have been on Broadway.
Broadway or Old Bullard, one of the two.
and there was a Jeep
Yeah.
that drove by. It was a Grand Cherokee, so it wasn't a real Jeep.
Yeah.
But
I will correct you. That isn't a Jeep. Yeah.
but it said "come and take it" on the bottom of the back glass. And I started laughing because it wasn't your cannon above it. It wasn't anything you would expect. It was a coffee cup. And I died laughing.
Yes.
Well, me and Heather at that point got talking about, you know, the Hebrew and the Greek and the transcribing from Hebrew and Greek into English and this and that and how the vernacular was different than what we use, because when you think about "come and take it," yes, it was used at the Battle of Gonzales for a cannon, which, you know, let's go. Come on, and let's see how bad you are. But when you look at the way it was done in the Greek with King Leonidas, it was simply the verbiage, come take. And so the vernacular of the way things were spoken opposed to written, he probably actually said, come and get them,
Right.
as in their sword, because they were told to lay down their swords and all that. But the way it was written was 2 words, come take. So the vernacular from what we have here, opposed to an actual Greek and a Greek written copy of Scripture, I know it's not the exact same. It can't be, because first century Greek is way different than 21st century East Texas.
Right. And you can read that version of the Bible.
In the Y'all Bible.
Right. You
I
can
got
read
it
that
right
version
here.
of the Bible too.
So
Going back to think of it as a singular event or multiple, I sometimes I'm a little too literal on things, and especially when I read things. And reading it, it says, and he turned and saw the multitudes, and his disciples came to him. He sat on the rock, and he opened his mouth and began to speak. So I think that was him, after all this healing, all this stuff he'd done. He's walking, and he sees this multitude of people, and he sees the time to sit. Let me teach them the way.
yeah.
Let me open their minds to the true meaning and body of Christ.
And
agree.
and two, I think the reason why we have such a and such a detailed telling in Matthew is because, at least in Matthew, this happens shortly after Christ calls him to follow him. And so you have Matthew, that's this newcomer to the group at that point, and this is his first real teaching.
Oh, you mean Matthew wasn't there with the microphone under the archangel going, now what did you say again? Can you say it more loudly?
And so, and
Take 2.
and so that's another
Mary and Joseph?
reason. I think that Matthew's retelling is so detailed is because he probably hung on every word.
Well, yeah. There again, I tend to look at all the gospel writers from. They all had a unique perspective. They all had something very specific, it seemed, that they wanted to get across and do, and for a very specific reason. So that's why I'm glad that we have all 4 of them. I would have liked to have heard what John thought about, the Sermon on the Mount and things like that, because there again, I do think, if you think about it, John was probably the youngest of the people that was running around with Jesus of any consistency. So what did Jesus look like from the eyes of a teenager, a younger man?
Yeah.
What
I mean, we've discussed that
Right.
briefly, that the disciples were probably no more than 22, 23 years old, because the only one we hear about that has a wife is Peter. And so you would imagine that they were in between the ages of 15 and 20, give or take. So
Right.
these are young men.
Right.
I mean, imagine Daniel doing that, or Wyatt doing that. I mean, the perspective of this thing is,
I
you're
can't
right.
imagine me being married at 14 or 15.
No.
I mean, no.
If you want to talk about divorce, I'd have been through several. By
I
the
got
time
married
by
at
the time I got
22.
18,
I got married a couple months after I turned 22, and I wasn't ready for
Right,
marriage.
exactly.
So,
But yeah, I think
these were
it's
young men.
Right. I wouldn't disagree that they're probably, not, as we see pictures of, Peter, bearded and all. That wasn't the cat that was running around with Christ.
Paul maybe, but
Well, Paul, because
but
he
Paul
was
was-
Jewish,
yeah.
and
Right.
and there again, I have a feeling that he was younger than what we might imagine him to be.
Mhm.
On the road to Damascus, I believe he was a young upstart. Oh, I'm gonna, kick butt and take names. Well, that isn't a 60-year-old guy.
That's true. Yeah.
we don't kick butt, take names anymore. We
I ask questions later.
I just question a bunch of stuff, and fire people up, right?
We sit back and go, Yep.
Yeah, but anyways,
Yeah. Well, guys, thank y'all. This is the introduction to the Sermon on the Mount. We will dive in next week with the Beatitudes. I'm looking forward to Christmas being over. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
But guys, I hope y'all have a great Christmas with your families.
y'all do.
sir,
Um,
same.
To y'all in that watch, I hope y'all had a great Christmas and a great New Year's, because this will air after that. So until then, guys, we'll see y'all next time.